Hey guys, Trev from the Struggling Artist Podcast, and I want to talk to you real quick about Struggling Artist Record Club. The Struggling Artist Record Club is a vinyl record subscription service where I hunt and curate the best punk and punk-adjacent music out there and mail their record to your door each and every month. Imagine finding your new favorite band from across the country without ever having to leave the house. It doesn't get much better than that. The excitement of discovering new music just got that much easier. As a member of the Struggling Artist Record Club, you are going to receive some of the best music you've ever heard from bands you may never even heard of. Whether you've been collecting records for years or just starting out, the Struggling Artist Record Club is designed specifically for you. And right now, all new members get a Struggling Artist Record Club exclusive along with the monthly selection. So head to StrugglingArtistRecordClub.com, pick a membership, and start building that collection today.
You're listening to the Struggling Artist Podcast.
People need to be entertained. They need the distraction.
With your host, Trev Allen.
I wish to God that somebody would do something to block out the voices in my head for 5 minutes.
Hello, today our guest is Zeph from the band StompBox. StompBox just came back from a really long hiatus. They were a band that started in 1989, put out a couple records, then disappeared until recently. Their new EP, Final Summer, is available everywhere where you listen to music. Make sure to check it out. And we'll catch you on the flip side of this. This is episode 259 of the Struggling Artist Podcast. Struggling with StompBox.
Self-esteem, standing in the crowd by my apathy. Never said I learned my lesson. No regrets, no confessions. Truth be told, I never was one to care. I couldn't tell you why everyone was there.
His neighbor is super into ham radios, and my buddy's daughter has these lights, and when they're plugged in and working, they screw up the guy with the ham radio.
Oh, really?
And
how far away are they?
They're like, I don't know, across the street neighbors maybe.
Yeah.
And like the guy, the dude I work with like tries to like accommodate him. Is like at first he got rid of the lights, but then someone like the daughter's friend got her some for her birthday or something, and so they had like he was like, I'm not gonna throw away these lights that she got for her birthday, and like so he's like been trying to deal with like, hey, just make sure you unplug it when you're done, and you know, it's the neighbor's like, oh, they must be plugged in. I can't hear, you know, I don't know, Russia or wherever he's like going with the hand radio. And it's just funny. It's what's funny to me is just like, I remember being a kid and like playing with ham radios and stuff and like that. It's a lost art, you know what I mean?
I never really got into it. I was always, kind of fascinated with it, fascinated with the people that do it.
Yeah. So it was, I don't know. The whole story is just kind of weird. And he's like dodging the neighbor because he's always got something to say, you know. And he's just like, he doesn't want to lose his cool because, like, you know, his kid's 12. Like, come on, you know, like. So I don't know. There's just an interesting little, but yeah, the lighting works pretty well. They go.
Are they like a transformer in them or something? Is that what interferes with the signal?
They've got these little resistors in them, and like you can cut them off and then resolder it, and then you can use the other strip somewhere else. And so I think that's why it's like that. But
I used to work at a set design shop, and we worked with a lot of rope lights.
Oh, cool. So, Zeph, we're here to talk about StompBox. We're not here to talk about ring lights, and I apologize. This podcast goes.
Sure, because I think I might have more to say about rope lights and decor than I do about StompBox.
I mean, we could, because I mean, your feng shui behind you is stellar. So.
Oh man, is it?
Yes. Yeah.
In the process of, I used to live in this house. This is a space above a garage that used to be a wood shop that I turned into my studio when we moved in here. We since sold the house. So I'm still here until August. We're building a new space, proper studio space. So all these boxes and a lot of this stuff behind me had previously been in the basement of this house. So, like this is my gear and my space, and also all my storage for all my, the stuff I'm not using. So to me, it's kind of chaotic and cramped in here right now.
Oh yeah, no, it looks good. It looks good. I don't know. I like it. So, yeah, I do this podcast and I just talk with people who are involved in music in some capacity, and we just have conversations like about rope lights, but I make sure we hit the topics that we need to hit, obviously. And
Sure.
It's a lot.
Well, let's get those out of the way. What are the topics we need to hit?
Well, so all right, so StompBox was introduced to me when the newest single dropped, which what was Final Summer the newest single?
Yeah.
And my buddy was like, "Hey, this was the first band I ever saw live." He's like,
wow.
He goes, and I didn't hear anything from them for years, and then now they have this, and so he was like, "You need to get them on. They have a story to tell. There's got to be a story to tell." So we're here.
I wish your friend was here, so he could tell you what to ask.
Yeah. Well, so I checked out the music. I checked out you have, on Bandcamp, Travis, and some demos are on there as well. And the sound.
There's a reissue of Travis was the cassette that we put out first when we were total scrubs, and just trying to get somebody to notice us. We put out this cassette, and then we reissued it with some old demo stuff. Then there's the full length record Stress, which is probably what most people that know about us at all know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was on Columbia Records?
Correct.
Yeah. So I guess I want to start, if you don't mind, we'll start so the band was formed in 1989?
Yeah.
What was it like? And you guys have always been part of Boston, right? You guys are from Boston, that's the band where you guys were, or?
Actually, we were from Boston for a relatively brief period. I'm the only one in the band that's from Massachusetts.
Okay.
I'm from South Shore.
Yeah.
Manamet, to be specific.
Okay.
Eric is from Spokane, Washington. Jeff's from Pittsburgh, and Pat was from Toledo. And they all came to Boston for school, like a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we met through a mutual friend. It was actually Dennis from the Boss Tones that introduced us.
Okay.
I had been in this suburban metal band that Dennis had managed. And he knew those guys from school. And yeah, that's about it. The band already existed when they were looking for a new drummer. Eric, the singer, and Pat, the bass player, they started the band together.
Mm-hmm.
Originally called Built Spear,
okay.
like spilled beer.
Yeah.
And then Jeff joined, and they were kind of changing the sound and trying to change the image of the band a little bit. I think it had previously been kind of more bar rock, party rock. And then when Jeff joined, they were going for something that was kind of more in step with other stuff that was happening at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then they put an ad out, and like I said, my friend Dennis heard about it and let me know. And yeah, anyway, what was the question?
So what was it like at that time, out in the music community in Boston, or just, so I talk about New England music a lot. I am not a musician by any means. I went to a show one time, saw another band, and then from that it just opened up everything I've ever loved about just New England music in general, whether it's Americana or punk rock or metal, you know what I mean? And for me, I've always seen it as this big community and like overall throughout New England. So like I guess what I'm asking is like what was it like back then? Like what kind of was it more competitive and less like family oriented? Like I out nowadays I see a lot of bands and they just like they all know each other, they help each other out, you know what I mean? Like what was it like at that time?
I mean, yeah, there was always that among certain groups of people. I don't know if it was as widespread. As far as what the Boston music scene was like in 1989, I'm really the wrong person to ask because I was living in Plymouth and I like knew nobody and knew nothing. I joined StompBox in 1991, and that's kind of like the first time I was part of like a scene or like met anybody in Boston, really. And even by then, just in those 2 years, I think things had changed a lot. Um, some, I, from what I've heard and from what I could notice from a distance, the kind of stuff that was still dominating the Boston scene was very indie alternative, like the Pixies, that kind of thing. Quirky, erudite kind of stuff, and the kind of sludgy, um, rock, grunge, whatever you want to call it, the more kind of like modern take on punk and classic rock and stuff that started happening in the 90s had really just started to take root when I was joining StompBox.
Yeah.
Most of the shows that those guys were doing were on weeknights at some local venues. There wasn't a real built-in audience for heavy rock, it didn't seem. There were underground venues like the Res and a couple of places on Thayer Street, 16 Thayer, 22 Thayer, House of Borax, that were just lofts for the most part that people live in. A couple of them had bars built into them, but they ran like after hours venues. And that's really where the scene that we came out of kind of started, is this very DIY thing. There was a lot of crossover with the museum school and mass art. It was a really, if I dare say, eclectic mix of people.
Yeah.
It was a scene of many contrasts.
We still get a lot of that today too. There's still a lot of that, which I love. Like I like going when I go to a show, like I want the bill to be as weird as possible, you know?
Oh yeah, that was definitely the way it was. I mean, like we would play, it wasn't, I know we played with Morphine a couple times at like relatively small shows, like 300-400 capacity venues. And like, us and Morphine didn't have anything stylistically in common. We tried to do that a lot with our shows. And the audience was definitely open to it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, and pretty quickly, like there was a signing frenzy that went on, obviously in the early mid 90s, and we got caught up in that, and some other friends of ours from Boston got caught up in that in various ways, and so I think that had a lot to do with a lot of other young bands, particularly in New England, seeing all these guys, mostly guys, some girls, like us, who really like we were not too far removed from where they were at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We were just in the practice space, like just being a dumbass local band. And then and I think it was really inspiring to a lot of people. I mean, that's what I continue to hear over the years. And it always kind of surprises me because I like to, well, I don't like to, but I mean, I tend to downplay what we were doing. Because it's not like we had some grand scheme that we had mapped out and it all fell right in place.
Right.
We fell into like something. And yeah, I think I do notice, and also as far as being from Boston, those guys really weren't. I kind of even really wasn't, although I was from Mass. And then fairly shortly afterwards, people left. I ended up going out to San Francisco and Atlanta and back to Boston and to New York, and now I'm in Vermont. Eric went out to California. Jeff went to New York. Pat went back to Ohio. So we haven't. I still have a lot of friends in Boston. So, and especially with social media and stuff, you see it from a distance. And from what I can tell, there's a lot more kind of regional cohesion and camaraderie now. And I think a lot of it does come out of that time, but certainly I'm sure it's gone through a lot of phases and iterations since then.
Yeah, for sure. And like, so when you guys got signed to Columbia Records, like, was this like, because like you were saying, like there was a signing frenzy at that time, and like, you know, bands were getting picked up, and to me it was like the start of something. Like that was very much like, you know, you had the sound that you guys had, that other bands had, and then it kind of moved into like almost more like melodic alternative rock, and then from that, metal kind of came back in, and then there was like new metal, you know what I mean? And then it just stopped. Yeah. It just unfortunately it just stopped with the money, right? Like when this was all happening, like what were you guys was just like what's going on here? Like was it because you said like
I think to a certain extent, we all understood as much as you can when you're in your early 20s and you're swept up in something like that. I do think we had a sense that this is temporary, that this is a period of excitement that is going to naturally kind of die down. So I think we were very much kind of, you know, take the money and run kind of attitude. Like, let's just enjoy this while it lasts, which, you know, in retrospect, I still think that was a pretty good way to approach it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, so like with, you know, with the music industry, like there's always these horror stories about the labels and like what they, you know, what they take from the bands. And nowadays we hear it with streaming services, right? Cause that's like the big thing now. Back then, like, was it really like that? Or is like, I mean, like, were you guys like, did they like buy all your songs from you and you weren't allowed to use them after the fact, or?
No, I mean, no, not really. I mean, like use them, you know, like use them in what capacity? I mean, I think people like the gig economy affects the entertainment business and especially the music business now. It's funny because that's always kind of been a gig economy. But the idea that you write a song to do anything with other than just play live and put on a record, maybe, I guess like when you're talking about able to do other things with your song, that basically means like licensing it, like letting skateboard videos use it, letting Doritos buy it or whatever. Like, yeah. I don't know that that's ever been very much different. Like once you get signed to a label and they give you money to help you create product for them, they have a stake in that product. But it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like the old days, like John Fogerty signing away all of your, all of your rights or something like that. You know, it's structured now so that you have to try pretty hard to sign away too much of it. No, I mean, I guess I'm kind of not. Rephrase the question. Repeat the question.
Was like, all right. So I guess what I'm trying to ask would be like leaving the label. If you guys did you have to like break the band up to leave the label? You know what I'm saying? Like something like that. No. Okay, so it wasn't anything like that.
I mean, like we still don't have, as far as I know, and we've been trying to work this out recently. I don't believe we would have the right to take the Columbia record, those specific recordings, and re-release it.
Right.
We're in the process of trying to get the rights to that back so we can just handle it, because as far as we know, it's not available through Columbia or Sony or anything anymore. But so, you know, for those recordings, we don't own that anymore, but I don't remember ever really being limited in any way. But we had a generally very positive relationship with the people at our label for the most part. There were a couple people that had different ideas about things. It's a very big company. A couple people that maybe weren't as excited about working with us, where things might have been better if they were. Alice in Chains was still like, they were the big metal thing at Columbia at the time. And a lot of the people at the label were really kind of committed to that band and pushing that band and didn't want any competition coming in on that band. They just acquired the Earache calendar at that time, which was this whole other, which, a lot of people that were involved in metal at Columbia were very excited about the time. And we were kind of just like, I think to some extent we did fall in the cracks over there. But yeah, we had a generally positive experience. I mean, we certainly got access to stuff and were able to do stuff through that relationship that we never would have otherwise.
Yeah. Were you guys touring a lot back then?
Yeah. That was mainly what we were doing.
Yeah. Now, is there when I don't know anything about record labels, right? So, like, is there like a?
I don't either, really.
Was it them that was like, all right, you guys got to get out there on the road and do this, like, or?
No, actually, I think the fact that we were already out on the road, even though we just had this cassette on a local label, is one of the reasons. I feel like at the time, getting in the van, as it were, and going out on the road was just kind of something you had to do. It was a box you had to check to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
So, and on the first tour that we did, we met the people that basically hooked us up with Columbia. We met a manager at our first show out in New York. And out in the West Coast, she made some phone calls, and she wasn't managing us at that time. We met a person who was a manager who expressed some interest in us, and she's like, "Oh, I want you to meet this lawyer friend of mine who we met in San Francisco on that same tour." And they really kind of just like manufactured this little buzz in the industry papers at the time, and yeah, within like 3 or 4 months, we were basically deciding between what labels we wanted to sign with. Not that there was a bidding war or anything. I mean, Columbia definitely showed the most interest, which is why we went with them.
Yeah. So the band becomes no longer, right? After Columbia Records, right? Did you guys put out one more before that?
No, we just put out one full length with them.
Okay, all right.
There were a couple promotional singles that they did.
Yeah.
We were like, the band was kind of coming to an end and transitioning into something else around the same time that relationship with Columbia was winding down for a lot of the same reasons. Really, there was a lot of interrelated causality between not being on Columbia and not being a band anymore.
And then, so you guys all like, because I was reading on your Bandcamp, like you guys stayed pretty close and like did other projects together over the years.
Yeah. I mean, we all stayed in touch with each other. Jeff was in Boston for a little while longer, and we had a couple other bands in Boston together.
Yeah.
Milligram for one, and Drug War with Dave from Tree. And then Jeff moved down to New York, and I moved down to New York not that long after that. So just by proximity, and like a lot of our friends from Boston had moved down there. So still traveling in similar circles. But yeah, and again, especially through social media becoming more prevalent, we'd always stayed in touch with each other. But like, I don't think any of us ever thought we would ever do StompBox again.
Yeah.
That wasn't something any of us were really looking for.
Right. So what changed then? Like, was it like, and I read, I'm a storyteller, right? So I'm always in my brain, like there's a million things moving at once. And I'm like, oh, these guys must have just like, got together and it's like, it just felt right again. You know what I mean? Like,
kind of. Yeah, that's basically it. We got a call. I mean, there was a spark. We got a call from a friend of ours back in Boston, letting us know that a really good mutual friend had gotten really sick and needed medical care, and it was very expensive. And this person was somebody who meant a lot to a lot of people from that scene, certainly to everybody in StompBox. And they were going to do some benefit shows, and they were getting some other bands from back in the day back together again. And would you be interested? And we just, like I said to somebody else, we got on the phone, and it was like less than a minute that we decided that we were going to figure out how to do it, being in like 4 different time zones, basically 3 different time zones. because it was for this friend of ours, Julie, and that's just all,
Mm-hmm.
that's all they needed to say. And we did those shows. Those guys came up to Vermont, and right here in this room, actually, we went through all the old songs, and yeah, just sounded good, felt good. We went down and did those shows, and it was very well received, and we felt good about what we did. We had wanted to, we were very ambitious, and we thought when we got together with this, let's have some new songs for this show in a few months.
Yeah.
Because Pat, the bass player, had a bunch of stuff that he'd written, a lot of which would be like perfect, for us. And so we had started working on some material, but we couldn't really get it together to the level we would have wanted it to be at. Surprise. I mean, it was kind of like ridiculous to think we could. But that, after the show's finished, we had these songs that we'd started working on. And it's so easy to work remotely now.
Mm.
We all have the capacity to record pretty decent sounding stuff, where we're at, and just share it. So we started doing that, and we got these 5 songs that just came out, but there's like this just sprawl of like half finished and like ideas for this and almost finished, just like tons of stuff that we're actually kind of now in the process of sorting through and figuring out what we're going to do next.
Nice. That's awesome. Is it like, so from then to now, everything's changed quite a bit, right? With like streaming services and like just how singles are the thing at the moment. And like, do you guys have to, like, are you guys planning with that in mind? Like, all right, cause like the EP is awesome. Like it works. It fits together. The single was great by itself as a single, and then together as a thing, it works like that too. I'm big into that. Like I want to put on a record and just kind of sit there and listen to it all. You know what I'm saying? So for me, more is always better, but nowadays I don't know if it is or not. You know what I'm saying? When far was like,
I think it just gives you a lot more freedom and flexibility. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that we have right now, and some of it is very close to finished and probably could have been finished for this release. But we just felt, like you just said, those 5 songs seem to really work together as a unit, has a nice little arc to it, kind of. And so let's just do that. And we have the freedom to do that because a release can be any length you want. It could be 1 song, it can be 3 songs, it could be 5 songs, it could be 20 songs. We have some ideas for the next thing we would like to do that might just be another short length thing, but we've definitely talked about also just putting out 1 and 2 songs at a time as they're done. Because again, just because you can. I don't think the idea of trying to generate a 10 to 14 song, 35 to 45 minute long playing album is still something that's really like motivating us, what we've talked about is doing smaller, shorter releases and then repackaging things, putting things on vinyl, maybe doing LPs that way.
Yeah. Yep. Okay.
We were always really, we love like the Fugazi EPs, and then the way that was repackaged, as 13 songs. And that's something that's come up a lot when we're talking about how to put releases together. When we were a band, it was very much, it seemed like if you didn't have like a full length LP, it just wasn't, it's kind of like going out on tour. Like that was another box you had to check, was we have a full length long playing record.
Yeah.
It has an instrumental on it and everything. Like,
yeah.
And I love, like, album rock is like my favorite stuff. Like the music I'm listening to right now is like really still album rock. But yeah, I don't think that's what's really driving our plans right now, though.
Yeah, no doubt.
Maybe it's because like we're not really a band. We're just like these separate people who are working remotely. So if we were all in the same space and we were doing this, like this was the focus of our lives, we probably would be thinking about trying to put out a full length record. So that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, yeah. Is there any talks about doing more shows or anything like that, or?
Not really. I mean, there's been talk and that there's been offers for other shows, but it's difficult. It's difficult logistically to put it together. It's difficult financially to put it together. And, it's in some ways it's not really practical because like the kind of shows that we are getting offered, they're good shows, but they're kind of like ramping up kind of shows, like to like get your feet wet, get out in front of an audience again, and then build up to maybe soon like doing headlining shows again. And that's just not really practical for us. Like we can't commit to a schedule like that. Okay, so we'll have a date in January, 3 months apart, that kind of thing. The Julie shows were a special occasion. So like if something else presented itself, we would make ourselves available to do it. But as far as getting back into the grind of doing shows as promo for the band, that's just not really practical.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. I mean, as we get older, life happens, and like it's just like, and you're doing this for the love of it, right? You're not doing this for anything other than that.
Really, for the most part. Yeah. I mean, like we all still work on music. I mean, Jeff, that's been Jeff's career the entire time. He worked at Blue Man Group. He still works within like the music business now. I'm in the process of building a studio and like getting something going up here in Vermont. So it's not like we've become accountants or anything.
Right.
But being in like a rock band that's out there on that grind is just not. It's, I don't know, if I wanted to do it, I'd do it.
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. So what's the writing like? Like who presents the first, like the bare bones of a song, or is it everyone?
Usually it's Pat, the bass player. He's got a lot of stuff that's pretty fleshed out, if not pretty much done. He's got, he's using drum machines, MIDI drums, and recording the guitars and the bass himself and putting some vocal ideas on a lot of stuff. Most of it comes from Pat. Some stuff has come from Jeff. 2 things on the new EP were very much driven by Jeff. I forget exactly what like the first idea on some of those was, but yeah, for the most part, Pat has an idea and then we start pulling it apart and seeing what we think about it. Sometimes it's just, this is great. I hear exactly what this should be, and we just do it in place. Sometimes Jeff and I will take like a razor blade to it, as it were, and like hack it up and try to move things around and play Tetris with it. It's pretty open-ended, really. Like it's kind of like Pat throws this thing out there that's like a prompt, basically, and then anybody that has an idea takes it and runs with it.
Yeah.
And we try to be supportive of that,
And now you guys are you're spread across the country still?
Yeah, Jeff's down in New York. I'm up in Vermont. Pat's in Michigan now. And and Eric's out in LA.
Oh, okay. Cool. Has this been like, I don't know, does it feel like the StompBox chat, like you guys thought maybe the book was closed for it, and now that it's back and it's like does it feel good? Does it feel like we like natural to you? You know what I mean? Like we're back doing.
I mean, it feels very natural to play with Jeff and Pat. Just as a musician, like the 3 of us have always clicked that way. And Eric provides this. I don't know, provide. I mean, Eric started the band. I don't know, maybe we provide to Eric or Eric provides to us. But there's definitely a contrast there. Like I said before, like I've played with Jeff in a lot of different projects, and we're really comfortable with each other, like the way each other plays. So yeah, it's the fact that there's really no pressure now. It was like how many decades in between our last release and this release. So it's not like we got to get something else out, and like we got to live up to expectations. Like there's none of that. We have like a pretty small fan base that's, generally I think pretty interested in whatever we're going to do, as long as it's of a certain quality. So we're just it's fun to just think about what else could we do with this now that we're in different places with our lives. What could we make this collaboration be?
Well,
I think it's going to go different places. I think like it's like this EP kind of like wraps up where we were coming from and like sets up where we might be going to. If we do more stuff, I think it's probably going to be more of a departure. And who knows who will come along with us on that. So yeah, like you said, it's because we are enjoying doing it.
The reception of it, I think, has been pretty good from what I've seen. I know, like, because when I was like kind of looking into you guys, because I was kind of mad I hadn't heard about you, in the 90s and stuff. It's like the music's my wheelhouse, right? So it's like what I was listening to back then. So, and even now, like I still go back to that. But like articles that I read and stuff, like everyone loved you guys, and then like. And then people are like, oh my gosh, because, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. So people had forgotten about you guys, and they're like, yeah. And then now you have this EP out there, and it, like I said, it seems like the reception's been really well. It has been.
I've always been surprised at like what almost like universal positive reception we get. I guess I have to assume that all the people that don't like it just didn't bother to say anything. Because when I see anything online about it, it's usually pretty glowing. So recently I did find something. It was written not that long ago by somebody that obviously like didn't know anything about the band. It just came across their desk or whatever, and they were pretty unimpressed. It was like the first article I'd seen somebody bother to write. I mean, I'm sure maybe some people did in the 90s, but like since then. But they were just like, yeah, whatever. This band sounds like Helmet, except like not as good, probably, and just had some pretty basic criticisms that I basically agree with, and just thought like, man, I'm so glad every article isn't like this one though, because in my mind it easily could be.
Yeah.
Again, like I think it has a lot to do with nostalgia, because it was a good time. Like people remember that as a good time, even if you weren't in a band that was getting signed. It was a lot of fun. People our age were having a lot of fun back then. And if we were the soundtrack to some of those people's experience at that time, we're associated with that. And that's always going to do a lot in our favor.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. So, where can people find your music? Where can they find you guys on social media?
Well, we're on StompBox Boston, even though we're not from Boston anymore. That's how people know us, and that's where most of our fans still basically live. StompBox Boston at Instagram or at Facebook. Also, StompBox at Bandcamp, or search for it on Spotify or Amazon, Apple, like all the streaming services. It's available.
Zeph, thank you for coming on today and talking with me about this. I absolutely enjoy the music of StompBox.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see what happens with the rest of those songs you were talking about.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
All right, and that's the show. I want to thank Zeph again for being today's guest on the Struggling Artist Podcast. In the show notes, you will find links to find StompBox or StompBox Boston. Thank you to Chris Chavez for being producer of the podcast. Thank you to State Line Records for sponsoring this podcast. And thank you to the band Losers Circle for allowing us to use The Great Illusion of Time as the intro music to the podcast off of their album, Took Long Enough. You can always find a link to that via our website, thestrugglingartist.com, or through our link tree. Thank you to everybody over at Patreon supporting us. If you want to become a patron, head to patreon.com/podcasttsa. Tons of content over there as far as different podcasts, We do some, every once in a while I'll send out records to people. I have CDs for people over there. Some swag here and there. I try to give back as much as possible, but all the contributions go to help the podcast and all the projects that we do within the podcast. Whether projects like the Evening With that we did with Michael Caine, or some other stuff we have in the works right now. Thank you to everybody who listens to the podcast. And, as we always say, if no one was there to listen, we wouldn't have a podcast or something like that. I don't know what I always say. I always say something different. That's what I always say. Everyone who reaches out to us via email, social media, Discord, text or voicemails. If you're asking, if you're new to this podcast, you're like, what is he talking about? Text and voicemails. We have the Struggling Artist Hotline, which you can text or call 774-570-1552. You can leave us a message. We will not engage. We will not call you back. Maybe if you text us and ask a question, we'll answer it. But for the most part, we're not gonna harass you or anything like that. Again, the number is 774-570-1552. All right, it's time to get out of here. Zeph was kind enough to give us a song from StompBox to play. This song is the title track of the EP. It is called Final Summer. Until next week, take care of yourselves. We'll talk to you then.